This is the Stock Trading Reality Podcast, episode 187.
The way of thinking was like literally that. It was like a type of exercise, just thinking differently and building on that, just one step at a time.
This is the Stock Trading Reality Podcast, where you get to see the realistic side of a trader's journey. Get inspired and stay motivated by everyday normal people who are currently on their journey to trading success. And this is your host. He struggles to understand Instagram and what people want. Don't we all? Clay Trader.
Yeah, I don't understand Instagram. I don't know what people want. And maybe our co-host Ches here can help me out. But I mean, just as a quick example, I have, you're supposed to post, sometimes you post like quotes and stuff. I'm like, oh man, this quote totally summarizes trading. Oh man, this is so good. And then you put it on Instagram and it gets like, I don't know, 70 likes. And then you post something that's more, I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it doesn't really, in my mind, it's like, okay, well, this will just kind of be, I'll throw it out there. I mean, it is what it is. And then all of a sudden this thing's got like 150 likes. What is going on? So I just don't understand. I don't get it. I do not understand what necessarily people are wanting, what causes likes, what causes this, that, and the other. But Ches, I guess A, are you even on Instagram? And B, do you understand Instagram at all?
A, I am not, but Kelly is, so I kind of look over her shoulder at what she's doing on it. But and then B, I have no idea what people want nowadays. And I have to think that sometimes I have no idea how it works, but some of your posts might not be shown to everybody who follows you and whatnot. I have no idea about Snapchat, Instagram, all this kind of newer age stuff, and man, does that make me feel and sound old.
We are getting so old. We are.
Yeah,
we
it's
really
kind of sad that you will eventually have to get an intern that's going to kind of make you hip again. But yeah, I have no idea, and I personally, at least for my own time, I try not to get lost in the scrolling of Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. I'll catch myself doing it once or twice a day, but man, if you want to find a time suck, those are the apps that can definitely cause you to lose a couple hours if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, and back to the whole intern thing, it's funny because Instagram stories, I had no idea what that, heck, you probably might not even know what that is, but wait, what's Instagram story? And then, a kid that used to be in our youth group at church was like, oh, I'll show you what an Instagram story is. And now I use them every now and then, but moral of the story, we're getting old and this technology is just passing us by because I have no idea how half this stuff works.
I can't keep up with it anymore. That's all. I guess I spend my time doing other things, but I just can't keep up with it. It's always something new every week. So yeah, I just can't do it.
It's, it remains to be seen. I guess that's the best way to kind of summarize all that sort of stuff. But as far as today's discussion, interview, whatever you want to call it, really good stuff and something that, it's kind of hit me from another angle, and Ches and I were talking before we got recording that we didn't really relate to. That's just because that's not how we were brought up. And but I found it fascinating how, sure, he was brought up in a certain way, but how he was able to kind of bust through and then really create a whole nother thinking for himself. So don't get me wrong, this is definitely still about the stock market. It's still about trading and investing. But I think there's a lot of underlying issues and underlying themes that occur that are very, very practical and very, very beneficial, whether you're talking about the stock market or just life in general. So I'm very excited about how this all turned out. And we never covered it in the interview itself. And don't make fun of me because I don't know how to say it, but Ethan is his name. But for you Inner Circle members in the chat room, he goes by, I'm just going to spell it out, Qualia. So qualia, maybe qualia, but I don't know if that's exactly how you say it, but that is his alias in the chat room. But Ethan is his name. So with that being said, let's hear about Ethan and his journey. Do you have any questions for us before we get started?
No, I haven't thought of anything. So I'm just
all right. Well,
I guess like it's weird. When you listen to other podcasts, you're always thinking like, okay, like I'm not really the kind of person they would look for. But the more I listen, I'm like, you really do need that spectrum of people in different places to understand where you're at. Because it's been surprising, like people, I'll be like, this guy's crazy. You know, I'm listening to him. And then next thing you know, you're like, man, he's got some gems in there. So it's
So
like,
you're thinking you have some gems too, based on what you've listened to in the past.
I hope so, because, like, everybody's circumstance is unique, and you never know if there's that one thing that you share with somebody and they're just like, like, I needed to hear that, because sometimes I find those gems in just the most obscure places with different people. Like, so you can never really judge a podcaster by like one of your interviews just after the first few minutes, because after a while you're like, wait a minute, this guy is he said something that really, like, I just never thought about, like a principle or some, way of looking at it with an attitude or something. And you're just like, okay, I'm glad I heard that, because that is something I need, to work on. So I don't know. I'm just, share what I have. And
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because you're right. It's maybe you have the same perspective as somebody, but maybe somebody rewords it in a different way that just helps you get that much stronger in whatever perspective it is. And I think, because I know Ches and I, we've agreed with lots of things, but there's been people that have said stuff and we're like, oh, that's a cool way of looking at it. That makes a whole lot of sense. So, let's start at the beginning here, though. Where did all this start for you? Where did you first hear about the market? And then kind of what got you interested enough to want to, pursue the markets a little bit more and get more hands-on?
All right. Well, I was trying to think of when would be a good starting point. And I guess, really the first time I actually tried to look into doing the market, I had a janitorial business back in California. And when I was doing that, somehow I got in contact with a broker. And this guy was so caring. Like, he always made sure that he was helping his clients. And he was one of these guys that would actually he had one of those type machines that would talk to people that were hard of hearing. And he was just really concerned about different people. He had a very gentle way about him. And that kind of stuck with me. I'm like, this guy could probably help me, So he was telling me a lot of principles, what I need to do as far as my business and how I should be putting away 20% if I can.
What year is this, for context, just for listeners?
It was right around the first Gulf War, I guess. So what year would that be? Like 86 or something? Like no.
I think early 90s maybe.
Yeah, 90s something. It was like towards the late 90s or something like that. So I was married, so yeah, it had to be like 98, 99.
Gotcha.
So, he's talking to me about, okay, putting your money away. And he actually just suggested that I open a money market. And of course, not knowing anything about finances at the time, like, okay, well, what's that? And so he's describing how, people manage these accounts and things like that, so that way they can, help it earn a little bit of interest. I'm like, well, why doesn't everybody have that? Why would you just open a regular savings account or have a regular checking account? And like, well, there's different products for different people. So, then, my next question is, well, why not start putting money in stocks, And so he was describing, well, he wanted me to be more conservative because I was so new and I didn't have a savings. I had debt. And he's like, this, just really start with that. But he tried to describe it to me, and I was kind of like thinking, like, I guess at the time Kmart was really low or something on the stock market. Wow, what, like why would a person get involved in buying Kmart? Well, some people believe it's actually going to go up, 20 years in the future, you see it didn't. But
you know what I find interesting, Clay, and I want you to weigh in on this too, is that most people say, oh, Kmart's cheap, like this is a great time to buy or anything like that, versus Ethan who's like, wow, Kmart's really cheap, like why would you want to get into that? So I think that's almost the flip side of the coin. I feel like most people's reaction is, oh, it's cheap, so therefore I should buy it. And yours was, oh, it's cheap, why would I buy this? And I think that's actually pretty awesome insight even that long ago.
Yeah, and well, I don't know if it was so much insight. It just to me, it was kind of like they weren't a good company. I saw that they were deteriorating, so obviously they would have been cheap. So what would make me think they would recover? I didn't understand, like, other businesses come in and buy it or, revamp it because of the name or whatever, and then, turn it into a better stock. I mean, I think even around that time, I kind of looked at Walmart and it was like really cheap at one time. Just kind of like scanning the internet. Wow, like here's a company that's pretty cheap, but why would I spend my money on these small stock things? And now today you see it's a much bigger stock, but I had no insight into it, or I'm just kind of like mostly just curious. I had no serious intentions of getting involved in the stock market, especially because when you dealt with a broker, they said, okay, you would put a certain amount of money into a particular stock, and he really encouraged mutual funds. They were just more stable, more secure, that whole rhetoric. So I was like, well, okay, so what do you got to do? And then he was telling me like the fees associated with even doing it. Why would I spend like $30 to put money in savings? And to me, it was just such a big number, like dealing with all these fees just to put your money away. And like, I can't even get out of debt, and savings is difficult for me. Why am I going to just give my money away to a broker? I was like, it'd be better for me to just put my money into getting out of debt, So I kind of just wrote on that, kept trying to work on my business for years, and I didn't really give the stock market much thought after that. And my money market account, I kept it, but I didn't really work it, or I just kind of used it to pay bills. I was kind of like, I'm holding up money for just a little bit of interest. So again, at that time in my life, I just didn't understand money, how it worked, and how to utilize it. I lived more in a fear-based modality of how you use money, like just give it to me so I can use it now kind of attitude. So I had a really bad foundation when it came to finance.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree with you, but what was this? First off, how old were you? Just out of curiosity.
I guess I was in my 20s, mid-20s.
Okay, mid-20s. And then what kind of debt was this? Was this a debt associated with the business?
Credit
or like
cards? No, just a lot of it was personal credit cards, just poor management skills. Like, it wasn't too much long after that I filed bankruptcy, and it was like dumb reasons why, just getting into a lot of debt, kind of not caring. And, I grew up in a very impoverished family. And it was always like we lived off of subsidies,
okay,
things of that nature. So it's like that was always drummed into me, and to the point where it was kind of like talking to me like, oh, you know what, you should always look at government aid to help you out. And it was like I was encouraged to think about government aid, things like that. So had that kind of mentality was always around me, because after all, when that's your world, you think like, well, the world's just a tough place, so you need a helping hand anywhere you can get it. It wasn't like, hey, set goals for yourself and here's how you do it. Because my parents, they didn't know that. They just worked paycheck to paycheck. So
that's very interesting.
That,
I think that could go back to our first little part about perspective. I mean, like you said, if that's your world, then I mean, I guess that the nature versus nurture argument in psychology is if you're kind of just brought up a certain way, I mean, that's kind of going to be how you dictate kind of how you think. But I don't know if this is jumping too far ahead. If it is, but I'm assuming that you've somehow broken away from that mindset.
Absolutely.
Is that, are we skipping too far ahead, or can you answer that now? But I don't want to.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of give it in order. I mean, like, I'll just give you the quick version of it. But like, I went in, there was still kind of that interest. Like, I was always a curious-minded person. Okay, what is this? How does things work? And then, Yahoo Finance kind of came out with ticker symbols, and I did paper trading of all this like big amounts. Didn't pay attention, and one day I looked at it, I was like, oh, I made all this money. Of course, it was all fake, but it still wasn't enough for me to really dig into the stock market. So it wasn't until sometime after that, like, I really got into a lot of motivational products like Tony Robbins, things like that. And it was just like, I'm like, there's this whole other way of thinking. And by listening to people that are telling you, like, here's a certain way to think and act in order to get what you want, it started to stick with me,
Now, my question is, what made you all of a sudden get into those people? I mean, why did you just wake up one morning and you thought, hey, I'm going to start listening to Tony Robbins, or was it kind of an accident? But
it was
because I mean, this is very clearly a big shift in your mental makeup and how you kind of view the world.
Man. Yeah,
so I mean, but what made you decide all of a sudden, go down that path.
It's almost cliche. You're staying up late one night, and you're just listening to the infomercials, and then you got this really tall guy telling you like your life can be amazing and stuff like that. And a lot of that stuff you always have in the back of your mind, like, yeah, they're just trying to sell me something. I don't know what it was, but he just said something like you can start. It's like building a muscle. You take one step and then you exercise, and then you build another thing on top of it and another thing on top of it. And I was really afraid to just invest in his, I don't know, $200 course or something like that. Like, I couldn't spend that kind of money. I would have had to put it on a credit card. So I remember I was at a bookstore, and it was just like the first CD for like $12. And I listened to it, and I was, holy smoke. Like, the way of thinking was like literally that. It was like a type of exercise, just thinking differently and building on that, just one step at a time. And it's amazing. Like, I guess some families always teach their kids, like, okay, if you want something, like, here's the steps that you take to do it, and here's how you go about thinking about it. But I was really brought up in the way of thinking, like, no, you can't have that. Oh no, we can't afford that. And it was just like always stopped at every turn. So I never developed that way of training my mind to achieve my goals. And and literally, like, when he said, okay, here's how you build yourself up to achieve a goal, it was like a novel idea, and I'm like, whoa, I don't have to live this way, So I went ahead and I like bought the course and listened to it. And a lot of it, in retrospect, was a lot of psychology stuff that could work for some people, or doesn't necessarily work for others. But I literally started going from a situation where I was making just maybe a little over $1,000 a month to at one point making $10,000 a month, just because of shifting my thinking. Now, of course, my debt would increase with that, and other problems, increase with that. But I just realized there's something real about this. And so I kept trying to really work on my thinking. I knew that if I kept working on my thinking, then I could improve. But as life has it, sometimes you have conflicting thoughts and things like that. So I still had a love-hate relationship with money. It's like, some people grow up thinking like, well, if you have a lot of money, or if you desire money, you're somehow a bad person. And I was always taught that. Like, it wasn't necessarily said in those words, but it was implied. Somebody had a lot of money, they weren't good people.
And I absolutely agree. There's some people who've always had money around them, so to them it always just seems to come easy. And then there's others like yourself where, it comes from more of a scarcity mindset where, oh, no, there's only so much, and, I don't have any. But yeah, I used to actually suffer from a lot of self-doubt, down talking to myself, and I had to focus on that stuff too. But I was in the same boat as you. I was like, I can't afford this. And I just ended up getting one book, and that led to a big shift in my entire life. So I'm glad to hear that was something you had kind of, I'm going to say stumbled upon, but we all kind of run into that when we need to, especially when we're living in that, perpetual state of unfortunate things where it feels like nothing is ever working out. And in reality, it's just how you look at things and how you approach stuff. But you made a big point that I need to dig into a little bit. How did you end up going from 1K a month to 10K a month? And I realize, there's obviously expenses, that are attributed to all that stuff. But how did you go from 1K to 10K? Because obviously, you got to believe in yourself to do that. So yeah, what'd you end up doing?
Yeah, I guess when you live in the world of victim mentality, it's kind of like when opportunities kind of come up to you, it's like, well, you do something. Like, somebody offers you a job, you got a job, but you didn't purposefully look for something. You know what I mean? It's because sometimes you're just kind of life is just happening to you. So since I had my own janitorial business that a friend helped me, start up, he basically just got me one account. He's like, here, take care of this account. This will like kind of help your family kind of thing. And I, cleaning's easy, right? So I just maintained it, and he showed me how to do it. And I remember even when I first started that first account, like I was going into a big building, and I was terrified. I'm like, I have all this responsibility for myself. But eventually it got easier, But then it was like, as I kept like thinking that way and trying to learn, I was like, well, why can't I just get another account and another account and another account? And I just started doing that. And I picked up like chains of stores and things like that. And it's like, then I, ran into the other problem. I only had so many hours in a day, started neglecting my family, and it's like just working to make money. And I wasn't really feeling like I was actually improving my life. It was just kind of like numbers were bigger, and it was like, you run into these different frustrations and you question yourself, like, why am I doing this? So it's like, I guess one of the problems like with Tony Robbins or a lot of these motivational type people is like they get you all motivated, pumped up, and say, yeah, go for it. And you feel like you can do it, but then there's no vehicle or structure to actually achieve a certain goal. You don't even know what your goals should be. Like, what's the point of just making a bunch of money if it crowds out everything else in life? Then you're just like, I want my life back. I don't want to just have money. You know what I mean? So it's like, I guess I went through that process of discouragement, and then you kind of falling back into your old mindsets and things like that. But it wasn't until I found the Rich Dad series, like his Rich Dad Poor Dad book. There was a lot of thinking in that about how money worked, the attitudes, the way people think, how there's two sets of people, like the employer, the employee type mentality that keeps their mind focused on the paycheck, whereas another person might keep their mind focused on ideas. And he kind of just really ran through how there's different mindsets. And one of his most profound things I think he ever said is that money isn't real. It doesn't exist the way we think it exists. And I was kind of like, wow, like, I don't get it, because when your bills are due, like, money does exist, like, you need it, right? Like, but it wasn't the way I thought it was.
People are looking for it, right? When bills are due, people are looking for that money.
He didn't really get into it. He's like, I'm not going to explain this book, but he's like, just keep that idea in mind. And so that really set me off, like, thinking, what is he talking about? And of course, I think he was, referring to fiat currencies and how it's no longer on the gold standard, didn't have any intrinsic value, things of that nature. So he was really talking about, okay, you got to change your attitude, make sure your personal problems are out of the way, and then you work on a business, and then when you work on the business, then you work on real estate assets, and then the real estate assets, then your last step would be paper assets like stocks, bonds, etc. So that always stuck with me. So I continued to get my business working better and better, and then I realized, like, I kind of needed to restructure. I had debt. Life in California was really difficult. I had some goals. I wanted to get into real estate. I saw Carlton. I got a lot of Carlton Sheet stuff. Like, I'm gonna buy houses. You can't just buy. I guess you can. I don't know how. Like, it's difficult, but like buying houses, no money down in California is needle in a haystack because. Yeah, it really felt like that. No, I mean, it's weird though.
Sorry. It's a scam. You press my button, so please just let me be rude for a second. For all of you real estate people out there, I realize it's not a real estate podcast. All this no money down. You don't need any money. You don't need this. You don't need that. Bad credit's okay. Just think about the irony in the statement. You don't need any money, but first you have to buy my course. Well, what the heck's up with that? I thought you just said you don't need any money. So send me money so I can show you how not to need money. Well, of course you need money because you got to learn. And then what they tell, I assure you, real estate, come wholesale. Because when you wholesale, you don't need a bunch of money and you can do all this. You need money. It takes money to make money. And this is where the Rich Dad, Poor Dad. First off, I want to give some credit before I kind of maybe do some under the bus throwing. But one principles that I love is, the mentalities. Some people look and say, oh, I can't afford that. Then other people then look at the same situation and say, how can I afford that? And I love that because that's the epitome of let's focus on the solution, not the problem. So, I mean, I'm not, totally anti against Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But the whole, you go into real estate before paper assets, that's a crock of garbage. You definitely should start to build up stocks and a portfolio, whether that be mutual fund. I mean, but get involved in the markets because you can get involved for a lot less. And then when you get, that growing, that taken care of, then you go into real estate because, As
Clay,
I kind of stepped on your toes, Ethan, but I'm assuming this whole no money down real estate didn't exactly turn out the way you thought it was. But I could be wrong.
And what you're saying is the conclusion I drew, on all this. So it just kind of was like that, it sparked my interest. If anything, it's like I love digesting information. So I picked up the concept. ironically though, even after that, like I did find a house in California that was way undervalued because it was so destroyed. And we did buy it for literally no money down, but literally the course should be
How
called.
did you find that house? Out of curiosity.
Just through friends of friends that just wanted to get out from under it. But check it out.
So you didn't even you spent no money on the marketing at all. Then it was just through word of mouth.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I fully believe you, but talk about a needle in a haystack type example, because
it was weird how it all worked out. I mean, it was a very unusual situation, but like that course should literally be called over leverage real estate. I mean, that's essentially what you're doing. You're just over leveraging yourself. I mean, I guess.
And on top of that, I mean, you don't need any money down. Well, you do need money down, because if you think you're going to find good deals by just searching the MLS or Zillow or whatever, everybody and their brother is searching those sites. If you want to get good deals, you have to spend money on marketing towards certain demographics, which again is just it's just counterintuitive to the whole premise of, well, you don't need any money. Well, you do need money, because you need to market for the distressed sellers and all that. And we won't turn this into a real estate investing podcast.
Yeah.
But so it sounds like you kind of had just one of those needle in a haystack type things where, like you said, it was just weird how it all worked out. So did you end up buying that house?
Yeah, so we bought it, and so we bought it for $135,000, and then the market was like growing by.
Wait, I thought you said you bought it for almost nothing.
Oh no, I mean the debt service. You know what I mean? Like we bought it. We didn't have to put any money out of our pocket. No money down is what I'm saying. We didn't get it for free. No.
I know, but where did you get 135 from? Just the leverage, like you were alluding to earlier?
Bank, of course, yeah.
Okay.
So we got it.
Okay. What year was this?
90. See the stock. Oh no, it was 03. Anyway, it was in 03.
Okay, so the bubble is expanding right now while this is going.
So the first year goes by, I found out my house was worth 50% over what I bought. Next year it's like double that, and like. And and this whole time I'm thinking like, okay, well, I got all this money, I could really get into buying houses, even if I have to put a little bit of money down, stuff like that. So I call their company. I'm like, what's the deal here? Like they're talking about people buying these houses $30,000, $50,000. I'm like, that doesn't exist in California. Well, it does in the South. And I'm like, oh really? So we had some friends that lived in the South. They came down to visit some other friends. We met up with them, and we said, you know what? So what's it like in the South? And when they explained it to us, we came out to Alabama to visit, because that's where we live now, right? And I was like, wait a minute. I could not only start my business back up in the cleaning business, which I do all type of floor cleaning now. I don't do janitorial. And I knew I could be very successful for that out here. I could buy real estate really cheap with very little money down, and I figured out how to do it with no money down. And then, I would be able to have a lot of these financial goals met. So after we visited, we checked out the area. I went back home, put the house up for market, and it sold in like 30 days, and we moved out of it. It was just like that. I was like, we're doing this. And,
well, I think it's amazing too that you had because there's drastically different, costs associated depending on where you live, and the fact that you said your place in California was $130,000 and Clay was giving you grief about it, I was like, that's the cheapest house I think I've ever heard of in California. And granted, I know it's a whole different year and stuff like that, but the fact that you were able to kind of realize, oh, if I go to a different region, I can take this profit that I made in the West and pretty much take it and in theory, multiply it on multiple properties. You can just spread the wealth around a lot more. So first off, kudos to you for kind of making that life jump. That's a big deal to kind of up your stuff and kind of move along and head on to the next big thing. So that's pretty cool. So where'd everything go from there? Did you relaunch the business and invest in more real estate in the South?
I did. So what I did is, we sold that house for $330,000. So it's like, man, we won the lottery. You know what I mean? And when we moved out here, we bought ourselves a house. I think we put $30,000 down. It's like, okay, I got all this money left over. I'm gonna start buying other real estate. So I got over leveraged again with all these other little properties, and And then, of course, '07 started to creep on. I started just watching the news and seeing how things were. And I'm like, man, people got it bad. I'm like, I'm glad I moved to the South because I didn't think it was going to hit us, you know. '08 comes around. Next, you know, like I'm doing a lot of these lease purchase deals. I had a lot. They were like 12 lease purchase deals. And suddenly people stopped paying here and there. And I would like, you know, run around trying to fix up the house, get it resold and stuff like that. It became a monster. It was like a tsunami. And then eventually it was like, I was getting behind on my payments, started getting back into debt. I'm like, oh no, man. I went from being out of debt, you know, creating this big retirement plan, and it's starting to crumble. And that was a really scary time. And it really forced me to understand money more than ever. Like I wanted to know how everything worked because I felt like I was in trouble and I didn't want to file bankruptcy. I'm going to beat this time. So we did get into debt, the credit cards and things like that. We really had to curtail our spending, things of that nature. And it was like, okay, so I was able to sell off as much property. And now to this day, like I got it all cleared out. And I do have 2 cash flowing properties that are still almost finished paying within the next 5 years. You know, so I was like, phew, we survived. You know, we survived that whole financial crash. But then again, you know, like I'm studying money. I'm like, you know, I still want to get involved in like the stock. And I would keep hearing people talk about, they were talking about how silver is going to go through the roof. It's going to be $400 a share. So I'm talking to another broker and the same thing, you know, it's like, oh, you know, $30 to buy 1 share of something.
How do you meet these brokers out of curiosity?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but how do you meet these brokers just out of
Well,
curiosity?
you know, this one particular broker I met, we were in a networking group and we all shared contacts in order to help each other get business. And he just happened to be a really nice guy, you know.
Okay.
I met his family. And you know, he actually told me, he says, well, you know, if you don't want to spend like broker fees, why don't you like open a like a TD Ameritrade account or something? Like you just, you know, do it yourself. I'm like, oh, they have things like that. Like, so I looked into it and I'm like, oh, crazy. Like the fees are much lower, but I was still unsure. Like, am I going to pay to put my money into some sort of savings? So I just kind of left it at that. And years have went by since I really started to think about the stock market. So it came around again that the rich dad guy, Robert Kiyosaki, had another seminar on it was like free, and I think Tony Robbins had something, and these were both at different times, but they both kind of said the same thing. They're like, you don't need a broker to put money into the stock market. In fact, if you invest in various companies over the long term, the money you're going to return because of not having all these fees, it's going to grow and you're going to be better off. And they were saying how 401ks are pretty much a joke. And these things are really for the benefit of the employer, not for the person putting it in. And so I said, you know, I want to understand more about that. So I got Tony Robbins' book. He got one on money. And it just was more, he was supposed to explain a lot more about like how to invest in the market and how like Warren Buffett thought about things and stuff like that. So that's when I said, you know what, if I'm ever going to do this, I need to understand how the stock market works. I want to know, you know, what it is before I put my money into anything. I'm not going to dive right in. And so that's when I went on to YouTube and, you know, found different people that were, I was more looking for information, you know, and, you know, I hear about like how people sell like these big dreams. If you get with our course, or whatever, I know a lot of your callers talk about that. A lot of the members talk about that, but same thing. It was just like, I didn't even want to hear what they had to say because I've already been through the Carlton sheets.
Is he
You
a
know,
big sell the dream type of guy?
I didn't want nobody selling some dream. I want somebody being very practical. That's like, okay, you know, here's how something works. Here's what you got to be cautious about. I was already looking for somebody that was really down to earth with these things. So you can hear them a mile away when they're trying to sell you some inflated ideology, you know. And so I remember I came across you, Clay, and it was like, I don't remember what the first video was, but it was like you did a podcast. No, excuse me. It was, you did this video on YouTube where you're driving around your truck and you were talking about real estate. And I'm like, okay, here's a guy that's about, you know, the stock market, but he does real estate on the side. Well, yeah, it's my kind of guy right there. Like, we speak the same language, you know, we like real estate. So and you just seemed really like you seemed like a normal guy that you weren't trying to like really sell something, but like you were giving information and it was genuine. I came across real clear. So I kept listening to what you had to say, and then like followed you on different things. And then, I found your uh, playtrader.com, and then I kept seeing about this free webinar. And, okay, I'll watch it. It was like talking about day trading. I'm like, oh, that's nice. But I'm not looking to day trade. I'm looking to do investing. You know? So, but then I saw the comments like how much you learn about it. I'm like, well, even if I'm gonna do investing, at least I think this is a good value for what I'm gonna learn. And so I started listening to your regular podcasts like from the beginning, and I think I spent maybe a good 6 months listening to them like every so many days. I would like eat up a podcast, and usually like when I'm working, I got a lot of alone time, so I can just listen to podcasts pretty much all day. So I listened to one after the other, and it just kind of got me interested. I'm like, day trading, like I've never thought of. Like I still wasn't convinced with it, but then I was like, well, maybe I'll get a course. And I was like, what if I got the whole thing, and really tried to just understand it? Like I'll get a better value out of it anyways. And I had some real estate money put it aside. We talked about it. Like it wasn't going to be in conflict. So I was like, yeah, I'll get the CTU on the first of the year, and I'll just do the payments. That'll give me time to like really digest that information. I still, even while I was listening to it, and I'm trying to understand everything, it was like I still didn't want to do day trade. But little by little, like it just made sense. I'm like, wait a minute, this could be another stream of income. I don't have to necessarily like sit in front of a computer all day. Like I could, do swing trading. Your course was actually the first course where I actually even understood what swing trading was. I didn't even know that.
Had you ever heard of it before, or did you just have just kind of false understanding of what it was?
No idea. I knew nothing about the stock market, how it worked, why stocks go up, nothing. It was just like I'm virgin material pretty much. I had no idea what was up with the stock market. So like I spent a lot of time trying to understand how money works, watching a lot of videos, things like that, and reading a lot of books about how money actually operates in society. But the whole stock market was like this foreign language. And I felt like if I'm going to try to understand a foreign language, I have to get into it. I can't dabble. I need to really understand some. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my time. So when I really decided to like understand what that language was about, excuse me, that's when I realized, like, man, there's a whole nother world here, and I found it very fascinating. And I've never really been the person to think like, okay, I'm going to invest in something and it's going to go to the moon rich. I just came at it from the perspective like slow and steady growth, put it into things, and then 10, 20 years from now, like those habits will pay rewards for me. But as I continue to watch it, I'm like, well, wait a minute. So it could be a stream of income too, and I have time to put up maybe like to get involved in it. So by the time I got to your course, that was RBR.
Yep.
That's when it was like, oh, I got this all figured out.
You're not the first person to say that. A lot of people say that's the one with the puzzle pieces kind of come together. But I want to just retract a little bit. You said I don't know the exact quote, but you didn't want to dabble. You just wanted to kind of go full bore. And what gave you that mindset? What gave you that mentality of, look, I don't want to dabble, because as Ches and I can allude to, we come across a lot of people that just kind of want to dabble around and they want to dip their toe in. And I'm assuming you would agree that the market, trading, whatever you're trading, this is not well, let's just kind of dabble around with it, because dabblers get their face kicked in and they lose their money. I mean, so where was this? Is this from the books you think you've read? But
yeah,
because it's maybe you don't think maybe for you it's like whatever. I never thought about that. But like I said, from Ches and I's perspective, we get a lot of dabblers. So what made you not want to be or not want to view things as dabbling around?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a really good question, because At that time, by the time I kind of worked out my real estate issues, my business was doing really well. When you're spending time around, in the community doing a lot of things, like my carpet cleaning business was doing really well. I didn't necessarily need more money in order to live. Like we were set. Like it just seemed like income was always coming in. I got involved in real estate to the point where I was like, I'm going to go get my real estate license. So I actually got my real estate license a couple years ago. And it was like, I need to do something that takes me off the machine. That I cleaning carpets and doing janitorial. It's hard on your body. And I'm 48 now. At that time, I was having a lot of joint pains and things like that. So I'm starting to think like I might have 5 years where I can handle this, but I'm a little concerned, about my health and being able the longevity of what I'm doing. So I needed to get in a different line of work. So I got into that, and then man, I was blown away. Like just the learning curve to sell real estate is huge. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do this and do what I'm doing now. And I'm no way going to sacrifice the time that I have for my family. Like I'm really cautious. I guard that time because, I have an 8-year-old boy, and it's like, he's not going to be 8 his whole life. And then I'm going to like miss out on it, and of course keeping your relationship strong. I think those things are so important, So I was like, yeah, I don't think I can do real estate. So I got my license and everything, but I was like, I can't I'm not going to be able to jump over that hoop to get it to where I need to replace my. I found that very difficult. So I guess I was kind of like lost what I should do, but then for some reason when they, because when you're talking about real estate, you're talking about securities, and then when I listen to different podcasts, they're talking about securities. I'm like, wait a minute, real estate and stock market is the same thing.
There's a bid-ask spread and there's volume. That's for sure. There's definitely similarities.
Yeah. I'm like, it's identical. Instead of dealing with big assets, you're dealing with smaller assets. So why not turn that into an income? So that's when I started also thinking, not only from the investment standpoint, then why not do the stock market as another source of income and phase myself out of the line of work that I'm doing now into another line of work, and just see how I can do that over the next 5 to 10 years and be steady about it. But once I got to that RVR course and I, so-called had it all figured out, I remember you guys talking about the emotion. I've been working my whole life on emotion. And after all, I listened to Tony Robbins, right? I've been all into like psychology.
So true.
I did the
so
psychology
true.
stuff my whole life and meditation. Everything. I got that stuff figured out. So then I remember like placing my first trade, and it was like voices. Oh my goodness, it is insane. Like the rush of seeing your stock go up was insane. And we're talking about like 3.
And the disappointment of it going down. I was gonna say
yeah, it's weird. And I'm like, what is going on? Like I became like obsessive watching it all the time. I'm like, this isn't normal. I can't live like this, And I had to take a step back after a few trades. Like, wait, I gotta think.
So at any point did you talk with your broker friends again that you were kind of entered the market and whoa, this was really kind of crazy, a little bit of an emotional roller coaster for me. Did you ever bring that up to him?
At one time, the broker guy, this just really shows the ridiculousness of the way everything works with money. It's like people use brokers because basically they're afraid. They don't want to do it. They rather put it in trust. It's like your health. You don't want to take care of your own health, so you put it in the hands of a doctor. You stop thinking about it. And a broker was the same thing for a lot of people. Now, one time he did this presentation, and he said he showed like all these people like holding different stocks. He goes, okay, now if this goes down, you go, okay, stop. We're going to convert it into cash. And this goes down. Okay, stop. We're going to convert it into cash. And so basically, he was saying if anything happens, we're just going to convert your stuff into cash. I'm like, what kind of lame thing is that? You know, we're gonna pay you to like just take it out of stock, put it in cash. Like it, I kind of got the point of what he was saying, but it was like they really don't have much at their disposal in order to help you make money. Like they're just basically guessing at it like anybody else. Like supposedly they're more informed, but I'm like, I can learn this stuff.
Sure, sure. We'll give them the educated. Yeah, absolutely. I'll give them the educated guess, which is all people use in the market. There's absolutely data and analytics and stuff like that, but ultimately, you're placing a wager with a set amount of risk. Ideally, if you're kind of doing this in the smart way possible, and it either works or it doesn't. And what you kind of notice is that, hey, look, this guy is going to essentially be taking a guess with my money, and I've talked about this a lot on a lot of different podcasts. The only person who has your best interest in mind is always going to be yourself. That's just as simple as that. And don't get me wrong, your broker could send you a fruit basket and a bunch of stuff at Christmas and a birthday card. But I promise you, you care more about your money than your broker does. And it's not a jab at brokers or anything like that. It's just ultimately you're going to have your best interest in mind. And if you want to pay him $40 to essentially stop out of a stock that you could have done yourself, and maybe even it's not even a logical location, why would you? So I'm glad to hear your eyes were essentially opened at that point.
Yeah, I just didn't get their mindset about that. I mean, because think about it, even when the great collapse just happened and they were converting everybody's assets into cash, they were getting paid on every one of those transactions converting, right? They were making a killing on your loss. It's like, but how come they didn't like prepare you for it? You know what I mean? So I'm like, if anybody uses their thinking ability and tries to understand something, you may be in a better position than a lot of people to put your trust in it. Because money is, I get the whole point. Like a broker does have its purpose, but at the same time, it's like it's kind of like that whole doctor's analogy. It's like, okay, if you have cancer, you do need to go to a specialist to kind of help you because you're in a bad place, right? But ultimately, you need to make those decisions for your own health. Maybe you need to like really look into the way you're eating, the way you're exercising, your relationships, and things like that. Because if you just say, "Here, I don't know what to do," you take care of it, like you're going to be in a bad place, right? So ultimately, whatever happens to you, you need to take full responsibility. So I just felt like I'm not going to put my trust in a broker because I don't want to know the truth about how things work. I just want to bury my head. So anyways, this was what's so cool. As I was going through your course, Clay, when I got to that one about Grow Rich, I think it's called, it's like it's really not about the stock market per se. It's more about investing. The idea about how to build wealth with what you already have, I don't know why, but it just like was like, I get it. It was a light bulb went off. From that day on, I started getting rid of all my credit cards, tweaking how much I was making at work, which I had always kind of did, but I really started to focus on it. So at the time that I listened to it, I was $3,000 in debt, and we had 2 car payments. And that was probably 4 or 5 months ago when I listened to it. Maybe 4 months ago. Now I'm out of debt completely, no car payments, no credit card debt, and I have a savings account, same amount of credit card debt. And it was like, I'm not making more money. I'm just creating these better habits. And I realized the reason why there was so much change is because not only did I need someone to show me a direction in order to go, in which direction to go, but I needed to like develop a purpose around it. Because making more money, that's not really a purpose. Do you see what I'm saying?
That is very true. That's, again, going back to perspective. I guess, yeah, making more money, okay, but what's the purpose? I mean, yeah, I fully agree.
Like why?
I've never quite looked at it necessarily in those sorts of ways, but yeah, does have to be some sort of purpose other than I want to make money. Well,
yeah, because I could always make more money, but then I would like blow it, and I was like, you get in that cycle of making more, spending more, but you get in debt, then you get out of debt, and it's just like you're in this never-ending cycle, and you don't know what the end game is. And being able to see that end game where you can replace your income through the stock market, where these are paying dividends, and they're like mini little rentals, basically every time you buy these
There are
dividend
absolutely
stocks.
there are absolutely many rentals. That's how I look at it. It's
Yeah,
a
pretty much.
rental portfolio, and except the tenants don't call you and complain about things. So I mean, I would argue in some ways it's better.
it really is, yeah. And I've always wanted to live real simple. I don't like a lot of distractions around me. So I was just like, okay, what's it going to take to replace my income? And if I'm doing, stocks on a daily basis, can I replace my income where, $100, $200 a day would literally like get me out of, working this job that could be physically hard on me in the future. So it's like, okay, I have a purpose. Oh, besides the other goals that I said about getting out of debt and everything, we also got got tickets to go to Hawaii, and it's all paid for. And again, I haven't made any more money. I just actually am doing better habits now.
You have a process and a system in place
and I have
now
money set aside. I'm still able to save. Yeah,
Right.
and it's really because of that one idea in that particular that audio series right there that just was like, wow, I can't believe I never thought that.
The grow rich course you're still
Right.
talking about.
That profoundly.
Now, have you
affected.
have you taken the slab money method, which is from my moneywithclay.com? Did you take
No.
that course, or is this all coming from the Grow Rich course?
Yeah, I haven't.
Okay, awesome. I mean,
I don't know.
So I thought
it just like I was like, aha, I get it. Now I know why.
No, that's awesome.
So now it's like when you come up with budgets and stuff like that, it's like it has a purpose now. Like a budget isn't just so that way you don't pay your bills on time. It's like got to have a bigger purpose. And so if I need to make more money for a particular purpose, like okay, I know how much I need to do or how I can tweak things because I have a purpose.
Yeah, no, that exactly. You gotta be able to look a little bit further into the distance, but that's true. I want to make money isn't necessarily really a purpose at all. I mean, it's got to go beyond that. Now, looking at the time here, we'll start to kind of wrap things up. But first off, before I forget, congratulations. That's awesome. 5 months ago, you're in debt. You have 2 car payments, and now you have 0 debt. You don't have any more car payments. Isn't it amazing how much more cash flow you have every month when you don't have to make payments like car payments?
Yeah. One of the things that
I mean, all of a sudden you're going to Hawaii now. Amazing how that works.
Right. I stopped going out to eat. That's where I found most of my money right there.
I
I would go out to eat every day because it was so convenient, at work. I just stopped doing that right there. And I had all this extra money. It was nuts.
That's that's awesome. That's awesome. That's I could go out on this topic forever and ever. But as far as your trading is concerned, are you still in education mode? Are you actually trading, or are you more so just focused on the whole investing type, grow rich type stuff right now?
Yeah, no. So I had traded for a while, and I was kind of like just getting my feet wet with real money. I did some paper trading, but then it was like I realized like I have this issue with different emotions. Like they're there, but the reason why is because I haven't been disciplined enough to write up an actual plan how to do it. Like I got to sit there and just force myself to make a plan. And I keep thinking like, how come I haven't did a plan? Because I guess one of my problems is I get into it and then I think, okay, I got this figured out, and then I'll try it and it doesn't work. So I just keep doing more education. And I'm like, wait a minute, I got to stop just trying to do more education. I educate my way out of this. I got to actually sit down and do a plan and test that plan until I say, yeah, it works. And for some reason, I find that difficult to do. That's the hardest part. I don't know if it's fear that maybe the plan will fail or maybe it'll make things boring for me, but I feel it's like pulling teeth, like going through that habit of building a plan.
I think a lot of it, which is a good problem to have, but I mean, given your business and all of that, it's not like you're short up on money, like you said. Especially now that you have the Grow Rich principles in place and you have all this extra cash every month. I mean, it's not like you're sitting there going, "Oh man, I need money, I need money." So I mean, it's probably kind of a lack of incentive, and that's why I say it's bad, but it's good because you don't have a huge incentive, but at the same time, that's not a bad thing because that means you have other areas of your finances, in place where you still have money coming in.
Yeah, you can get apathetic real easy. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's probably got something to do with it, but I mean, just talking out loud and listening from what it sounds like the key number for you is like the 5 years, because you think you have about 5 years left for your physical body before it starts to kind of, you know, say, yeah, see you later.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess you got about 5 years to really find that incentive. So with every year, obviously it gets closer and closer, but that's really the only way I can think of right now to kind of maybe help you get over that hurdle. Because I mean, it does make sense. Why do I really? Because you have money coming in already.
That's true. Incentive could be one thing, but I also like sometimes, like, again, like if you brought up a certain way and you're not trained how to achieve a certain goal, like sometimes you don't know how to lay out the steps. And recently, within the last, I don't know, 2-3 weeks, I started really going over the 12th chapter of Trading in the Zone. And that guy breaks it down nice, step by step. Here's how you got to think. Here's how you need to like create your plan. And I'm like, whoa. And then it just dawned on me, like, I could apply this to everything.
Mark Douglas was the man.
And so I like wrote down all these steps on how you need to think about your plan. So I realized I got to go back to the RVR, and I also got to do that second one where you got to print out all your charts, which skill sharpening. I got to go back over that, and then I'll develop a plan out of that. So I got to go back and educate them, because right now I'm on the volcano, and I think that's kind of cool because it shows you like the life cycle of a breakout. But I got to go back to the basics and then develop a plan, and then just start working on the basics. And once that works, then I can take it to the next thing, like an option.
I think that plan sounds very logical. And I was a little bit worried, but you kind of said, but first I need to focus on these other things. And I would agree, focus on those things. And that's great that you found, from that book, which is, on the resource part of the website from Mark Douglas. But how to actually do a plan. And now that you have all that, you can go back, like you said, and start to actually construct and put together a plan. So I would say, Ches, feel free to disagree, but I would say that Ethan is approaching this all in a logical manner, and he's kind of making corrections as need to be corrected in a wise manner.
I fully disagree. No, I'm kidding. It's absolutely taking it in about the most logical approach you can do it. And the hard thing is I think Ethan had to already go through this, and I'm only bringing this up because I'm sure there's at least one listener out there. Ethan, correct me if I'm wrong. At some point, you felt like you were in this pit of despair, right? Like you just kind of focused on the problems and never thought about the solutions. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean that's just how life always was.
Yeah, so that kind of mindset shift for Ethan is what, in my opinion, kind of spurred him to start being open-minded enough to logically look at his problems and figure out solutions. So if you're out there and you just feel like life sucks and blah blah blah, I promise you're just focusing on the wrong thing. And I'm not trying to make this a psychology podcast, but I assure you that was a big turning point for you, and that's why you're able to you look at it with a level head. I don't know a better way to say it. So
you totally
I would absolutely agree, Clay.
I would say, Clay, like you should also like resell, like repackage your course to say that like it's that the stock market could literally be like a way to see if you got your emotions in check. Like it's like a psychology course or something.
That dentist chair test.
That's actually kind of that is true. Is you think you have your emotions in check? Well, let's actually see if you have your emotions in check. That is an interesting angle on it for sure.
Yeah, because the weird thing is the more I do this, like my health is getting better. I'm more disciplined with that. Like there's no coincidence there.
It's funny how that works, right? It's this whole snowball effect, and I love it. That's I love that challenge.
You start thinking logically about the issues you're having instead of like putting them off in some emotional treasure chest in your subconscious. You like actually start dealing with it. And the stock market will force you to think about how you think, use your mind. If you're an emotional person and you're not being logic about it, it'll tell you, look, here's what I do. And I've been so thankful I've never found fool's gold, because I could have just deceived myself. Like everything's been simple.
I'm with you there too.
I'm grateful I didn't run into that, but I'm very cautious.
Yeah, and there are many people jealous of your situation of not having run into it, but
I've heard horror stories.
You were always you were very practical, I would say, in your approach. And like you said, you could see the people selling the dreams from a mile away. You never thought that you were going to, buy some stock and have it turn you into a millionaire. So it makes sense why you probably never gambled big and then, accidentally had one work out and thought, oh, I got it figured out. So it does make sense, how that kind of occurred in your journey, just hearing kind of your mindset and reflections on things. But wow, we're definitely going to have you back. But before we go, we need to, I guess I'm going to steal your question, Ches. Is that okay? All
it.
right.
Yep.
So Ches, as I know you know because you've listened to many other episodes, but Ches has a podcast. Ches, yes, he does have a podcast, but he also has a time machine. And if he were to lend you this time machine, and you could go back to, I don't know, I'll let you pick out what spot you want to go back to. But if you could give yourself one bit of advice, what would that be?
I think about this every time you ask a person that, but you know, I keep coming to the place where you think about if you could go to a time where you see a younger version of yourself and teach you that life is not the way you see it, like help myself at a younger age deal with the emotions and learn how to set goals. Like that would have transformed my life whether or not I got into the stock market or not. But with that being said, that's something I can't do to my kid.
Right. Absolutely. And that's, I mean, geez, right there. What a shining example of, instead of focusing on himself, he's already like,
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
I'm going to help my kid out by kind of, not shoving it on him, but just teaching him this from an earlier age than kind of you had it. So
yeah, the principles, man, that'll take you far in life no matter what you do.
absolutely. And just like you said, it has absolutely nothing to do with anything specific. It's just an overarching kind of life thing. And I'm fully agree with you. And very, very important thing for me as well. But, as to echo Clay here, thank you so much for being a guest today. The real reason that Clay did invite you, though, was to find out what your favorite movie is.
Okay, you switched it around for me. I'm glad
we gotta
because
keep you off balance. We're sneaky.
I'm really shocked nobody actually brought this up. The two biggest financial movies that are out there that are hidden in plain sight is The Matrix and what's her name? Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. Those they're the biggest financial movies you will ever watch, but they're hidden in meaning, behind the meaning.
Oh, great.
If you
my
Google
wife is
it,
not going to be happy with you as I pull up those movies with my notebook now and start to write my dissertation on it.
Oh, it's crazy.
So I see Neo was shorting interest rates in this part of the movie. Gotcha.
There's a whole scene where, he's waking up and he was asleep at the computer and somebody knocks at the door and there's this guy named Troy, right? Troy is for like troy ounce, gold. And he's with de jure, which is like the real person. It's a legal term. And he's like, you're late, man. And he gives him cash for a program, which was like kind of like how we're in a financial situation now. Instead of using actual money, we use programs now for everything. So it's really weird because as you get into the details of that movie, that was the analogy what they were portraying. Is that the matrix we're living in isn't actually real stuff that we're dealing with. It's all kind of based on agreement and contract, and it's kind of fake. That's why they can manipulate markets so much, because it's not a piece of gold where you can expand it. You can expand fiat currency. And so it's a powerful movie, and the symbolism behind it is really incredible. All that karate stuff was just to distract you from the real purpose of the movie. But you got to Google it because it's a rabbit hole that's very interesting.
That does sound. Whoever knew, but I don't know. I'm scared to Google it because I don't need to be sucked down another rabbit hole right now. But like I said, I need your phone number and email. That way, if I do go down the rabbit hole, my wife has somebody to yell at.
Anytime.
That's some good stuff. Interesting. Food wise, what do you like to eat down in Alabama?
Oh man, they ain't got no good food down here, man. I have to get out of here to get good food. We're kind of in a foodie desert, so everything's been over fried and too much sugar and everything. It does not taste right.
Well, you said you went out to eat all the time. No.
Right.
I'm not gonna. Because you said you went out to eat all the time. That was in Alabama, right?
Yeah, well, you pick up fast
then what
food,
is all this food
you
keep going out to eat?
Yeah, that was just like Jack's and McDonald's to get you through the day. It wasn't true like enjoying food. It was kind of like nah. Then afterwards you got to deal with it. Yeah, it was convenience food. It was not. Yeah,
fair enough.
But if I was to say any place, sushi. Well made sushi is it's incredible. That's probably my favorite.
Yeah, so, I was going to say, when you were talking about food down there, I was like, it depends on what people like to eat. If they want some deep fried stuff with lots of sugar and things like that, then they're in the Mecca, but it all depends on what you want. So
true, yeah.
That makes a lot more sense. But,
true.
So what do you do for... Go ahead.
No, I'll just say I go into Atlanta a lot. That's about 2 hours from us, and that's kind of a food haven.
Yeah, there's definitely more choices out there. But what do you do for fun and hobbies?
Running is a big thing for me, which, by the way, is a metaphor for everything in life. dealing with your thoughts, especially when you're trying to hit that extra mile or whatever, you're not listening to the voices in your head, so that's been a really good hobby for me to do running. And right now it just seems like the stock market became another hobby for me. But, for fun, definitely running and hiking and things like that. I love outdoor.
Awesome. I personally think you're a sick and demented individual for finding pleasure in running, but hey, if it floats your boat, then so be it. But that's good that you're in.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, that's great that you're into fitness and keeping that cardio.
I'm just chasing the endorphin high. That's
there
all
you
it
go.
is.
There you go. And final question: 3 words. These 3 words need to be what you would describe with successful trading. What would those 3 words be?
For me, it's been really knowing yourself, or self-awareness, I guess, if that's one. Self-awareness is super important. And then being disciplined to sit down and make a plan. I feel that will really catapult me in the right direction. And then just having vision, see where you're going.
I like that. Those are words and principles that really encapsulate quite a bit, and that's a great way to end this discussion here. Will you come back though? Because I feel like there's a lot more to come.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make sure I get a plan together that actually works. So next time we're on, I can say, Clay, I'm doing it. I'm living the dream now.
Awesome.
Definitely.
I'll hold you to that. That sounds like a good.
Yes, sir.
That sounds like a good
it.
plan of action. So, yeah, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for taking some time out of your day.
Man, my pleasure.
And, we will be in touch for sure.
Thank you so much.
For you listeners out there, before you go, a final few things. If you are listening on the YouTube channel, please check out the rest of the channel. There's a lot more than just the podcast episodes. There's live trade videos. There's vlogs. That's where you would find that real estate video that Ethan was talking about earlier on in the interview. There's quick tip videos. There's lots of other stuff on the YouTube channel. So be sure to check it out, and hopefully you ultimately decide to subscribe. If you are listening at claytrader.com on the show notes page, make sure to click that share button, leave us a comment down below. We pride ourselves in being interactive, so if you do leave us something, we will read it and we will reply. And finally, on iTunes or any of the other podcast players, please subscribe, and especially on iTunes, if you could leave us a rating, that really goes a long way and helps us out quite a bit, and we truly would appreciate it. So thank you again to Ethan. Thank you again to Ches, our esteemed co-host. We will see you back next week.
This has been the Stock Trading Reality Podcast. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. To learn more about Clay and the Clay Trader community, including the trading team, premium training, and more, visit claytrader.com.